Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Share the room, share the room. Let's peace and blessings to you all. Make sure you share the room with at least 3 people. Just pulling up a good picture real quick before we get started. While more people jump in the room, we're gonna have a quick discussion about Israel and the continent of Africa. We're gonna have a quick discussion about Israel and various discussions informing the people about Black history according to the Bible. A lot of people from different religious circles, when you talk to them about the Bible, they think that the people of the Bible, shalom to you, Most High Christ bless, they think that the people of the Bible are actually from like the Netherlands or from Turkey or from Azerbaijan or the UK or something like that. And that's not the case. That's not true. So make sure y'all share the room. We're going to go into Israel in Africa based on the Bible. Also, we have a couple of goals. I'm planning on working on a documentary, and I want to work on 10 documentary series and release it over the course, actually 20 documentaries and release it over the course of 10 years, meaning two per every 10 years, or two per every year rather. I apologize. And I want to have your support. So if you're able to support this endeavor that I'm trying to do, please feel free to do so. I am literally right now traveling from the States to Malawi, Africa. I'm currently in Blantyre, Africa now. And it's a wonderful experience. It's really good seeing all the different people and the different culture that's here in the continent of Africa. It's really beautiful. I'm not sure if any of my subscribers that are on here were able to look at some of the videos that I posted up of the mountains and of the region, but the continent of Africa is so beautiful, man. Really, really beautiful, really beautiful. So I wanted to get into touching on Israel and Africa. So let's get right into it, right? Share the room with at least 10 people if you're joining up. Please show some love and support on this endeavor that we're trying to do in reaching all the scattered tribes, 12 tribes worldwide. We love all our people. We love all our supporters. Even we love our haters, you know. So we want to make sure that everybody is able to gain information and insight through the Forefront Radio. This particular niche is different from other podcasts and other things on the internet nowadays because they don't necessarily go into the history of biblical based things as well as the various cultures of Black people throughout the world, you know. When you watch television news, when you watch documentaries, there's a lot of missing information about so-called Black people. And we ask a vital question. We say, who were you prior to slavery? Who were you prior to colonization? A lot of people don't know. They say you're from Africa, but guess what? Africa has 54 countries with various tribes, various cultures, you know. Welcome to the room. Welcome to the room. Share the room with at least 10 people. You know, there's 54 countries in Africa. So there's a plethora of people all over the planet that classify under the title quote unquote Black, whether they're African American, whether they're Afro Caribbean, whether they're Afro, Iranian, Afro Iraqi, whether they're from South America. But many of them have a common ancestry being sold into slavery and losing their identity and not realizing that the very book known as the Bible is actually their history. You understand? So make sure you share the room with at least 10 people. Share the room with at least 10 people so that way we have more people that hear this content and information. All right. So let's get right into it. Genesis chapter 46, verse 2 says this. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. So Jacob was having a dream. The creator of all things, shalom to you, hope you're doing all right. The creator of all things was speaking to him, and he said, Here am I. On occasion in your personal life, you're going to have moments where God actually reaches out to you. You're going to have moments where God actually speaks to you either through a vision or through a dream. And when he speaks to you, you better answer. You better say, I'm right here. You understand? Let's read on. It says, And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. And unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him. So, what are we reading here? We're reading in the book of Genesis that Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, was told by the Most High to live in Egypt. So last time I checked, right, when I looked on maps, everybody has Google. Egypt is in the continent of Africa. The majority of folks that are in the continent of Africa are melanated. So now we're reading here about Joseph being given a bride named Asenath, who was the daughter of Potiphera, who was an ancient priest in Mizraim, aka Egypt. Okay, so why is this important? This is important because the information that we're reading here relates to the 12 tribes scattered worldwide. Okay, the 12 tribes scattered worldwide. Okay, very important to know this information. Okay, so let's go to some real quick history about Potiphera. Potiphera was a priest of On. When you read in the Hebrew Bible, he was the one that gave his daughter Asenath to marry Joseph in the land of Egypt. So Joseph now had two sons, one named Manasseh and one named Ephraim. One named Manasseh and one named Ephraim. And when you look at the history of these folks, you see that they intermingled amongst many black tribes all throughout Africa, as well as all of the indigenous peoples that they intermingled with during the time that they went into captivity. That's including what? The Arabic people. That's including what? The Assyrians, the Moabites. That's including what? That's including the people that were taken from the west coast of Africa and brought over to the Americas. They intermingled with some of the Spanish people. And these groups of people became the quote-unquote lost tribes of the northern kingdom, Ephraim being the head of it. Watch this. We're going to go to Psalms chapter 105, verse 23. Psalms chapter 105, verse 23. It says this. Israel also came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham. In the land of Ham. So make sure you share the live with at least 10 people, y'all. Make sure you share the live, because TikTok on occasion will boost the numbers up and then all of a sudden drop it down real quick. So in order for people to stay in the room, you got to make sure that you're sharing the information with at least 10 people, so that way the likes get up and the algorithm promotes it to more people. Because Black history, according to the Bible, is very important information. Learning this information is vital to building a gap between what we call the diaspora, which is the scattered people in the Americas, to the continent of Africa, to the continent of Asia, and all other people in the global world. You understand? So let's go to Exodus chapter 2. We're going to read how our forefather Moses was compared to a black Egyptian. Our forefather Moses was compared to a black Egyptian. Watch this. And then after that, he was married to a woman by the name of Zipporah, who was from the continent of Africa. She was a Midianite and also a Cushite, which is descendants of the Hamites. Watch this. Exodus chapter 2, verse 17. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they had came to Reuel their father, he said, How is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water unto us, and watered the flock. And he said unto his daughters, And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah his daughter for a wife. So we're reading right here that Moses was compared to what? A black Egyptian. Moses, the forefather that took the Israelites out of captivity, out of slavery, he was compared to a black Egyptian. And then he was given a wife by the name of Zipporah, who was a descendant of the Midianites, who were also black tribes of people. So even if you went to church and they try to deceive you to say, which some of them do, that Moses was some sort of Caucasian male from Kansas or something, why would they leave out the fact that he got married to a black woman? You see what I'm saying? So even let's give them that. Let's say even if Moses was Caucasian, which he wasn't, he was clearly a black man, by the fact that he married Zipporah, who was a daughter of Cushitic tribes of people, Midianitish people, descendants of black Shemites and black Cushites, then we can do just simple equations to say that his descendants would further on be melanated people. Okay? Like they say, once you go black, you can't go back, right? So now let's go to real quick Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 48. It says, Therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So what are we reading? We're reading here history about what happened to the ancient Israelites. They were given a promise from the forefathers saying, if you listen to my laws, statutes, and commandments, you'll be the top nation on the earth. But if you don't listen to my rules and regulations, once you got out of Egypt, generational curses would fall upon you as a nation of people. One of those would include enslavement. One of those would be including serving your enemy for food, water, clothing, and the want of all things. And that same enemy would put a yoke of iron upon our neck until we were destroyed. So now, when you read the Bible, you find out that the Assyrians came in as the first primary people that went to the Israelites of the northern kingdom and enslaved them. Watch this. Isaiah chapter 52, verse 2. It says, Shake thyself from the dust. Arise and sit down, O Jerusalem. Loose thyself from the bands of thy neck, O captive daughter of Zion. Verse 3. For thus saith the Lord, Ye have sold yourselves for naught, and ye shall be redeemed without money. For thus saith the Lord God, my people went down aforetime into Egypt to sojourn there. So what is he referencing? He's referencing the fact that our forefather Jacob went to live in the land of Egypt. Now watch this. It says, and the Assyrian oppressed them without a cause. And the Assyrian oppressed them without a cause. So if you look at where Assyria is, that's the area that we call Asia Minor, the area of Turkey, Istanbul, all those areas right there. These people went into Northeast Africa and oppressed the people that were sojourning there and enslaved the northern part of the kingdom of Israel. So now there's a relationship between the continent of Africa and Israel, which is so deep that many people fail to realize that many of the scattered 12 tribes went down into Africa. Even during the time of Christ, when there was Roman occupation, okay? Even during the time of Christ, when we read about Joseph and Miriam, Joseph and Mother Mary, they left from Judea and traveled down into Africa, into the area of Egypt. Okay? You can't get a Caucasian out of that. You understand what I'm saying? Why would Jesus hide amongst melanated people if he looked like Brad Pitt? It doesn't make sense. You understand? So let's read Matthew chapter 2, verse 13. It says this. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt. Where is Egypt, y'all? Egypt is in the continent of Africa. Egypt is not in the land of Kansas. Egypt is not in Canada. Egypt is not in the UK. Egypt is in the continent of Africa, y'all. That's telling us that the Israelites had deep roots, that whenever they came into trouble in dealing with the other nations, where did they always flee to? They fled into Africa. They fled into Africa. That's what they did. So we're reading Matthew chapter 2, verse 13. Let's read it again. It says, And when they were departed, behold, the angel of Yahweh appeared to Yahusap or Joseph in a dream. Joseph in a dream. So remember when we were mentioning earlier about how Jacob had a dream and the Most High came and talked to him? So now we're reading here that the same thing happened with his descendant by the name of Joseph, who's from the tribe of Judah. Joseph basically had a vision, a dream, where the Most High appeared to him saying, you need to go up and take this young child and his mother and flee, run away out of Egypt. Why? Because the Romans who were occupying Judea, Northeast Africa, knew that a savior was to arise. You see, back in ancient times, people took dreams seriously. If there was a vision or a prophecy of a coming king that would conquer the nations, people would take that very seriously. Okay, it ain't like today where people watch television and they're distracted with social media and magazines and all of that stuff, and they're not really paying attention to spiritual things. A lot of times when people had dreams, they had significant meanings. So pay attention to the signs. When God tells you to do something through a dream, get up and go. Okay, that's what I did. Okay, my rib that I'm with now, my wife, she had a dream that we had a kid, and I was like, "How is it that we never met, but you had a dream that we had a kid?" And guess what? Now I'm literally in the continent of Africa, and we just got married. So the same story of Joseph and Miriam going down into Egypt is what I'm experiencing now, where God told me, "Look, it's getting bad in America. It's getting bad. You need to get up and go." It's getting really bad out in America. People don't see the signs of what's happening, but I pay attention to everything that's happening. Okay? I pay attention to the signs. And God revealed to me, you need to get up and go to the fatherland. You need to get up and go to Africa, which is what I'm inviting everybody to do. Even if you just go to visit, even if you just go to see what it's like. Sometimes you need to go and visit these places to get out of the mindset of the Western culture. You understand? So now we're reading here in the New Testament about what happened with the ancient Israelites during the time of Roman occupation. You have Joseph and his relatives going down into Egypt. Shalom to you, Most High in Christ bless. Shalom, shalom. So now we're going to read a description now of Paul, who was one of the disciples of Christ, who was now also compared to a black Egyptian. Okay, watch this. Acts chapter 21, verse 37, it says, And as Paul was led into the castle, he said to the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek? Art not thou that Egyptian? That Egyptian? That Egyptian? Hold up. This man is being called an Egyptian. This man is being called an Egyptian. This dude, who was a disciple of Christ, teaching the gospel, was compared to a black Egyptian. That must, through simple process of elimination, we can either say that the ancient Egyptians are either melanated like the so-called Arabs, or they look like those people that are on the hieroglyphs that are black, Nubian, what they call quote-unquote sub-Saharan Africans, West Africans. That's what they look like back then. Okay? It says, Art not thou that Egyptian which before these days made an uproar and led out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers? And Paul said, listen to the answer he gave. It says, and Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. So we see here that he said, I'm not a black Egyptian, I'm a Jew. You understand? So he's saying he's from the southern kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom of Judea. That's what he's saying here. So that's telling us that the Jews were compared to black Egyptians. That's the correlation that we have between the Bible and black history. The Bible and the continent of Africa. The Israelites and the continent of Africa. You see? Very easy to understand. Very common sense. Okay? If this was talking about people that lived in, let's say, in the Netherlands, right? You would get descriptions of peoples and places and say, this person is a Jew of the Netherlands. This person is a, whatever, from whatever. They're from America, or they're from, Canada, or they're from Scandinavia. You would get a particular place. But all we're reading throughout the Bible is you're hearing about Egypt. That's in Africa. You're reading about them intermarrying amongst Ethiopians. That's in Africa. You're hearing about them intermarrying between the Canaanites. That's in Africa. Okay? We just read earlier that Israel sojourned or lived during in the land of Ham. And according to Genesis, the Hamites are the people that live in the continent of Africa. Not all, though. There are black Shemites that live there, and there are black Hamitic tribes or Nilotic tribes, also Bantu, that live in the continent of Africa. You understand? So it's very important to know this information. That way we're not deceived by modern religion. Because modern religion will have you believe that the people in the Bible are all Caucasian. That's not true. That's not true at all. With that being said, we're going to read one more scripture, and then we're going to talk about the ancient black Hebrew kingdoms in the continent of Africa. Listen close. Acts chapter 13, verse 1. It says, now there were in the church that was in Antioch certain prophets and teachers. Certain prophets and teachers, meaning they were well versed in the Bible, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger or Nigger, Niger. I'm going to tell you a quick story, right? One time I got detained by a police department, right? And when I got detained, I ended up talking to this guy who was of another nationality. Let's just call it straight. He was the white tea people, or whatever the TikTok terminology I use. Right? I call them red lobsters. So he was a part of the Red Lobster crew, right? So this individual was a extremist, a European nationalist. I call it European delusionalist. That's what I call them, right? Because they think that everything that's blanco is beautiful. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. That's how you feel, okay. I understand otherwise, but okay, if that's how you feel, okay. He was showing me tattoos of his leg of symbolism dealing with colonialism and the people that live in Germany. You know what I'm talking about. That little swastika stuff. And I had showed him Acts chapter 13, verse 1. I asked him, hey, you believe in God? He's like, yeah, I believe in God. I said, you believe in the Bible? He's like, yeah, I believe in the Bible. I don't practice it, but I believe in it. And then I read him Acts chapter 13, verse 1. I said, now there were in the church that was in Antioch. And I asked him, is the church full of Christians? He said, yeah. Is the church full of Israelites? He said, yeah. I said, okay, let's read on. It says, now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger. And I asked him a question. I said, who do you call black, or Niger? And he was like, oh, that's in the Bible? I said, yeah. So guess what? The same people that your ancestors manipulated and enslaved, they're actually the 12 tribes of Israel. This dude jaw dropped to the ground. This dude jaw dropped to the ground. You understand what I'm saying? So now we know, politically speaking, today, there's a country that's called Niger or Niger. There's another country called Nigeria or Nigeria. There's also a river called the Niger River or the Nigeria River. Okay? So the predominant groups of people that live in Niger or Niger are black people. So wait a minute. The conflict going on in Niger where they're trying to get rid of the French, is the same type of conflict that was going on during the time of Christ when the black Israelites was fighting against Roman occupation, Roman colonialism. Guess what? There's nothing new under the sun, folks. That's telling us that the same things that was happening to the Israelites, where the Romans were invading their land, stealing their resources, stealing the people, manipulating them, getting all the riches and wealth to themselves. That's the same thing that's happening in so-called African countries, so-called South American countries, Central American. Everybody's trying to fight against neocolonialism. Okay? When you read the Bible about how the Edomites conduct themselves, they were greatly despised amongst all nations. Let's read on. Watch this. It says, and Lucius of Cyrene, if you read closely, you find, look up on a dictionary or look up on a map where Cyrene is. Cyrene is in Libya. At one point in time, the whole entire continent of Africa was called either Libya, Egypt, or Ethiopia. So now you have one prophet named Simeon that was called Niger, Niger or Niger. Now you have another prophet by the name of Lucius who lived in Cyrene or Libya. That's also in Africa. So that's two people of the church, of the early church, right? That were Israelites called prophets and teachers, one named Barnabas, one named Simeon, one named Lucius, okay? And they all came out of Africa. Then it says Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod, the Tetrarch, and Saul. So Saul is Paul. Paul got compared to a black Egyptian. That's one. So that's one check mark, right? So let's say you're playing baseball. So strike one. Is Paul a Caucasian? No. He got compared to a black Egyptian. That's strike one. So now you got Lucius of Cyrene. So Cyrene is the area of Libya. That's in Africa. That's strike two. So now you got Simeon, who was called Niger or Niger. Okay. Niger is a country in Africa, and predominantly melanated people are there, aka black people, aka brown people. Okay. So that's strike three right there. That's three strikes, you're out. That means the whole entire Bible has never been about people from the Netherlands, people from Poland, people that call themselves Ashkenazim, people from Germany and Russia and Ukraine and Azerbaijan and Turkey and all of that. The Bible never been about these folks, y'all. We're literally reading about three instances of people from the continent of Africa. This is why I'm giving you the relationship between the Israelites and Africa, so that way you know that the Bible is a black history book, a Latino history book, a Native American history book. It's not about white folks, y'all. I'm telling you the God's the honest truth. Now, do we have our people mingled amongst the nations? Yes, we do. Do we have our people that have traversed to far reaches and have intermingled? Yes, we do. But the primary source that you can go to is the Bible to talk about the ancient black Hebrew kingdoms in Africa. Now watch this. Africa has a rich and diverse history, often overlooked and misrepresented. Among the many notable civilizations that flourish in the northern Africa region, we know of a kingdom of black Hebrews that stood out in significance throughout history of the Africa's continent's narrative. Okay, so in this discussion, I want to share with you that history and that legacy of these kingdoms and hopefully shed light to the accomplishments, the culture, and the impact of the African continent. Okay, so let's talk about the roots and origins. Ancient black Hebrew kingdoms in Africa can trace many of their roots back to biblical times and including the stories of ancient Israelites. That's why I was giving you some of the biblical-based references in the beginning so you can get a basis to start off where you can start to do your own research, okay? I always talk about the Bible from a historical perspective. I don't talk about it from religion. So remove religion and religiosity from the equation. Let's focus just on solely history for now. It says some historians argue that migrations and diasporas contributed to the Israelite presence in various regions all throughout Africa. So now these communities developed self-reliant and prosperous civilizations, replete with rich cultural traditions mixed with their Hebrew heritage. Meaning what? You're going to see in certain places in the continent of Africa, in the Caribbean islands, in African American culture, in South American culture, in Brazil, that their practices are the same things that you could find written of in the Bible. Their culture is the same thing that you could see in the Bible. For example, in the region that we know of as Ethiopia, there was a place called the Kingdom of Axum. Okay? So, one notable ancient Black Hebrew kingdom was the Kingdom of Axum, which is located now in present day Ethiopia and Eritrea. Okay? So, remember what I said earlier. At one period of time, the whole entire continent was called either Libya or Egypt or Africa. Okay? So now we're reading here, we're going into the kingdom of Axum, which was in Ethiopia and modern day Eritrea. Okay, I hope this makes sense. Make sure y'all share the room if this information is insightful for you. Share the room with at least 10 people. Make sure you like, okay, make sure you like and make sure you're following the Forefront Radio for more information because we're going into some good history here. All right, so now let's talk about Axum. Axum, which is in Ethiopia, in the continent of Africa, was a powerful trading center that lasted between the 1st century and the 7th century. Okay, this is AD, y'all. This ain't BC. This is from the 1st century all the way to the 7th century. Okay, the Kingdom of Axum was a powerful trading center that facilitated connections between the continent of Africa, the Mediterranean Sea, the Mediterranean region, and the Ethiopian and Indian Ocean. Okay. In ancient times, the area that we call the Indian Ocean used to be called the Ethiopian Ocean. Okay. The kingdom's leadership embraced Judaism and Hebrew influence that can be traced by their iconography, their language, and their architecture. Okay. The next group of Israelites in the continent of Africa that I'd like to touch on is a group called the Lemba. Okay, the Lemba people inhabiting the regions of southern Africa, including Zimbabwe and South Africa, claimed their descent directly from Hebrews. It was so heavy that they even had to try to do genetic studies on these people, y'all, to give fascinating revelations and connections between the Lemba and the Israelite people. Okay. They have supporting oral traditions about their travels from Northeast Africa all the way down into South Africa. So now the Lemba have maintained distinct biblical practices. Let me say that again. The group of people known as the Lemba, who are black tribes of people in South Africa and Zimbabwe, they have distinct biblical practices, meaning what? They practice circumcision, that's in the Bible. They practice dietary laws, that's in the Bible. They observe the 7-day Sabbath, that's in the Bible. That's showing you the relationship between the continent of Africa and Israel. Okay? This is proof that the people of the Bible are not the people from the Netherlands and Poland and all of that. Okay? The next kingdom we're going to talk about is the Songhai Empire. Okay? The Songhai Empire. You can do a Google search on this empire. Okay? This was an empire that was in West Africa. So now, while the Songhai Empire was not exclusively a Hebrew kingdom, the Songhai Empire was a vast West African empire that incorporated diverse ethnic and religious groups, including a predominant Hebrew population. Okay? The Hebrew presence in this empire exemplifies the cross-cultural interaction of the time and religious tolerance that existed within these African civilizations. This is history, y'all, that we have not learned in education. This is very important to know because when it comes to Black history, they only reserve history to what we know on the African American side, where they talk about Harriet Tubman, where they talk about Rosa Parks, where they talk about Malcolm X. They never tell you who were you prior to slavery. They never said, hey, there was an empire where you were in rulership during the time of the 1st century all the way to 7th century in the continent of Africa. They never touch on these things. So this information is imperative. Make sure you're liking this. Make sure you're sharing this. Make sure this is like one of the most important information throughout the internet for all black people. And it saddens me that TikTok tries to lower the numbers, because initially it was about 500 or so people that was in this room, and then slowly but surely they started dismissing them out the room, right? This is vital information that you won't even learn in school. Okay? Very important information. Okay? The next section I'm going to touch on real quick is this: cultural contributions and legacy. What is the cultural contributions of Black Hebrew kingdoms in Africa? It is essential to acknowledge the cultural contributions of ancient Black Hebrew kingdoms. Why is this important? We have developed unique artistic traditions, music, literature, often integrating our Hebraic influences that have traversed the whole entire world. These civilizations played a significant role, in spreading the ideas, knowledge, technology, and contributing to the overall development of the continent of Africa. Okay, because consider the fact, it was the Israelites that set up pyramids, not aliens like they try to deceive you to believe on National Geographic and Discovery Channel. It was the Israelites that developed pyramids in South America, Central America, in the Americas itself, in Canada. Why? Because we were the ones that were vital, providing artistic traditions, music, literature, architecture, science. Okay? We brought these spread of ideas and knowledge to the whole entire world. Okay? The next section I'm going to talk about real quick is the challenges and the decline of Black Hebrew kingdoms, and the influences of slavery and exploitation that transpired with our people, and why many people don't see the relationship with the Bible and the continent of Africa. Let's go into it real quick. The Black Hebrew kingdoms faced their share of challenges. External pressures such as invasions, conflict with neighboring civilizations, contributed to the decline of many of our kingdoms in the continent of Africa. Additionally,